Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Inside ODOT podcast. I'm Sarah Kelber from ODOT Communications and your host for today's episode. Today we're continuing our series about ODOT's budget and revenue situation, focusing on the Oregon Driver and Motor Vehicles Division of ODOT, which you probably know best as the DMV. Public Information Officer Chris Crabb interviews DMV Administrator Amy Joyce about what's happening with the division. Continuing the theme, hear about how to secure your real ID before the federal deadline next May. But first, hear from two Highschool to Highway trainee program participants, Hayden Lowe and Dylan Obersinner. In this new program, recent or upcoming grads learn about state government, maintenance work, and construction projects. Welcome, and let's get started.
Hayden Lowe, I'm 19, and I'm from Bend, Oregon. It was just a really good opportunity for me. I didn't really want to pursue anything in college or any of that. I didn't want to join the military, it just wasn't for me. And I was just wanting to join the workforce as fast as possible and kind of get a good retirement plan and look more towards the future for myself. It was mostly just the experience, being able to get enough experience for a permanent job. You know, that's the one thing at my age where you're starting off at zero and it's so hard to get a good, reliable, permanent job. And this is just something that can get you in the door and get you that experience that you need. I'll be, as they call, vested in 5 years. And from there, it's kind of up and up, you know. It's going to be great. To be fair, I don't really care what where I'm at, what I'm doing. I just want to have that kind of camaraderie amongst my fellow coworkers and just something that I can wake up and be like, hey, I get to do this, you know? And I'm just happy I'm helping the people of my community. And that's the biggest thing for me, is helping my community. I'm stationed out of Bend, and great group. They've kind of more or less been like, hey, you need to get your CDL as soon as possible, because let me tell you, winter is gonna be fun, as they put it. And so it's one of those things where winter's just going to be going until maybe March, you know, May. And so you're going to be using that as much as possible. So get that as soon as possible. And then from there, it's just a lot of highway maintenance, of course. So far, we've learned about CPR and first aid, traffic control, what we just did today. We've learned about our dispatch center here in Bend. We've talked to an IR guy, an incident response. They are really very, very important people, both of those, because they kind of help keep everybody together and keep everything kind of neat and organized, I should say. Especially dispatch, they have so much on their plate, and it's kind of cool to see what they're going through. They did play a little snippet of what their day-to-day life looks like, and that was pretty cool. I would say when I was growing up, he's been at ODOT for I think 6 or 7 years now. Maybe 8, but no, it was one of those things where I wasn't really basing my decision off of the experiences I've heard from my dad. It was more or less what I read and what the benefits were. My dad did tell me about how good the retirement was going to be, and of course that is a big plus, but at the same token, I was just doing a normal patty flipping job, and I wanted something that was going to be a lot better for me in the long run. And I saw a lot of things that suited me here. I'm a really hands-on guy, and that was more or less what I was looking for, is something in this kind of factor, you know, this group. And the only thing that drove me most was that experience, is getting this experience the most. I was thinking there was going to be over 100 people applying for this one position, but I don't think it got out to the public like they wanted it to, of course. But it's one of those things where I was talking to the head guy that's teaching us this week, and he was telling me that he put out this program for less communities that were not hiring as much or had a really fast turnover rate. And so I think that's one of the things that it did not help, because it was more a rural kind of area for them. And I think that these next couple years, when they open it up, if they open it up to the rest of the state, it's going to be great. I feel like it's going to bring a new mindset to this ODOT community. I feel it's going to be amazing. The guys here at Bend Department, they basically took me under their wing, and they have some laughs here and there with me, and that's great. And it's really nice being able to learn from them, but also sit down and kind of kick the bucket around, and that's always great. It's the camaraderie they do the best, it's a big family. This Bend group, they're really motivated. I've heard a lot about them, and it's one of those things where I like a really motivated group that is able to get stuff done. And we have a bunch of funding for our roads that came in this year. So we're going to nights here and there and doing paving jobs and chip seals and all that fun stuff. And it's one of those things where, as someone that's not coming from a lot of construction experience, that's what I'm looking for. And I'm very happy to be in this position.
Hi, I'm Dylan Obersinner. I am currently out of Lapine, Oregon, and I am 20. I'm from the Valley. I graduated out of a little high school in the Valley called Jefferson High School out of Jefferson, Oregon. It's off of I-5, kind of. I'm about 10 minutes from I-5. I currently live in Lapine now, work out of Lapine. I wanted to move over here. When I moved over here from the Valley, I wanted to work for ODOT. I have family and friends that work for the state of Oregon, whether it be state police, other departments, or Department of Transportation. I've always enjoyed it. I always wanted to be the dude that's helping people, going in places where other people are trying to leave, being the quote-unquote guardian of the highway, plowing the snow, making paths. I wanted to do it regardless. When it came along, it was more just like, holy cow, yeah, this is an awesome opportunity. It's already something I wanted to do, so why not jump ahead and try to do it earlier than I would have been able to and get more experiences and, yeah, other benefits for doing it. I think about my future. I'm a farmer, so it's not just what's going to happen this year. It's years to follow to go with it. I think it's been fun. It's definitely a new program. We're all trying to figure it out. We're all new to it. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff that we have done and we haven't done, instructors and students included. It doesn't really matter. It's a learning experience is what it is. I think it's awesome. It's cool that we're going over some of this stuff more than jobs. I've had jobs similar to this, and we haven't gone nearly over as much as these guys have, and we're on day 3, at the end of day 3. So yeah, it's been awesome. I'm looking forward to finishing out and starting the actual job with them and seeing more classes come in behind it and learn even more. I think it would be awesome to be an IR guy, but time will tell. It would be really cool, but at the same time, like I said, my dad does it, and he looks forward to the winter. All 3 of the guys I work with are like, wintertime is awesome. They're not a fan of putting chains on the snow, but if they're prepared and they can hang out in that truck and just go down 97 and come back, they say it's a lot of fun. So maybe a couple of seasons of that, I'll love it and I'll never want to leave, or maybe an IR slot will come up and I'll want to do that. It's hard to say. Being the helpful hand, I should say, yeah, being there when nobody else is, holding scenes off, making sure the other first responders are safe, and people who have either been in an accident or are just stuck on the side of the road are safe and are getting where they need to. I come from a long list of soldiers, firefighters, policemen, and that's always something I kind of wanted to follow with. This is a pretty cool way to go. A lot of how we do traffic control, I've never driving by it or through it, I've never paid super close attention to it, but when I see our class go into it in detail, it is an operation. Sitting in one of the trucks or operating something in that work zone, it is constant chatter. Everyone is communicating at every little point about every single thing. It is super important, and it is perfect for safety, just information in general. It is insane how much work goes into that and communication. Yeah, I'm excited for winter. All the cool maintenances they're pretty fun tasks, honestly. All of the paving, chip sealing, building shoulders, keeping delineators, pounding posts, making sure signs are standing. Obviously the important stuff like making sure accidents are cleared, no debris left in the road, animals. There's a lot that goes into it, but I think the winter is going to be a blast.
The federal deadline to have a real ID or passport to board a plane is coming up in May 2025. Here's what DMV has been doing to make the process as easy as possible for Oregonians.
My name is Amy Joyce, and I'm the administrator of Oregon's DMV. Yeah, as of the enforcement date, which is May 7th of 2025, you're going to need something that's Real ID compliant. So that could be a passport, or there's a number of documents that are pretty uncommon that are listed on TSA's website. Otherwise, you need a Real ID compliant driver's license or ID card. A standard license or ID card will not get you on a plane. So to get a Real ID, you must come into a DMV field office. You're going to need to bring very specific documents. It cannot be done online. So you can go online and make an appointment, or you can just walk up to the DMV. That's probably the fastest way to get in. To get the Real ID version of a license or ID card, it's an extra $30 charge. And that helps pay for us to operate the Real ID process. If your current driver's license has your current address, that's one of your address documents. Phone bill, utility bill, junk mail. Whatever's got your name and your address on it, you can use for the address document. The most important message is to be informed and make a choice. You do not have to get a Real ID. Just know that if you want to fly domestically, you need some form of ID that's going to get you through TSA. So again, a passport will work and you don't have to get a Real ID. As the enforcement date gets closer, we know there's going to be a big rush at DMVs, so get in sooner than later. If your license is up for renewal, you can renew up to a year in advance, so be informed and make a plan. You cannot get a Real ID in a day or even a week. So you're going to need to collect specific documents and come in to the DMV in person. And then when your transaction is done, it's going to be about 2 weeks before that plastic card comes in the mail, and that's what's going to get you on the plane. So anytime you renew or replace a credential at DMV, you're going to get issued a paper temporary card, and that continues your driving privileges, but you cannot use that as Real ID to get on a plane.
Next up, Amy Joyce and Chris Crabb discuss what's going on within the DMV, including how the division is handling the budget and revenue issues it's facing.
Hi, my name is Chris Crabb. I'm a Public Information Officer with ODOT's Oregon Driver and Motor Vehicle Services Division, or DMV. I'm joined today by Oregon DMV Administrator Amy Joyce. Thanks so much for being here, Amy.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about Oregon DMV. How is it essential to ODOT's customer service work?
Well, DMV is a customer service organization. If you're 15, 16 years of age or older in Oregon, you're probably coming to see us for something. We have a big role in keeping the roads safe, and we also provide a lot of revenue for the transportation system at the state, county, and city level. So almost every Oregonian, again, is a customer of DMV, and this gives us a big responsibility. We consider ourselves the face of state government. So we strive to provide excellent customer service that's accessible and reliable.
Wonderful. When you say that almost every Oregonian is a customer, how many people does the DMV serve on a given day?
A lot. We've got 59 field offices across the state. 2023, those field offices served more than 10,000 customers every business day. Every month, we see more than 1 million visitors to DMV2U, our online site. Customers can conduct a lot of transactions and find information. We've got 3 call centers. They answer over 1 million customer inquiries every year. We maintain 3.7 million driver's licenses or ID cards and about 4.5 million vehicle registrations.
So you're right, that's a lot of customers.
It is. And we know how important DMV services are to Oregonians and to businesses too across the state.
The Legislators' Joint Committee on Transportation has been visiting different parts of the state this summer, holding a listening tour, and that's in preparation for consideration of a new transportation funding package during the 2025 legislative session. Can you tell our listeners a little bit of what the tour is about?
So ODOT's facing some pretty deep cuts because of an issue with how our agency is funded. So in Oregon, gas tax receipts are combined with those fees that we all pay on our vehicles and also what freight haulers pay. And that creates what we call the State Highway Fund. And that fund distributes money to transportation agencies across the state. Like I said before, state highways, county roads, city streets. The State Highway Fund does have a revenue problem, and there are several causes to that, three primary ones. So first, there's a declining gas tax revenue as people purchase increasingly fuel-efficient cars, and those gas tax revenues are on track to decline. Another reason is high inflation, right? We all experience that, but ODOT does too. So with every year that goes by, the same dollar purchases less materials, less service, and none of ODOT's highway fund taxes are indexed or pegged to inflation. And last, only a small share of the funding that comes into the state can be used to maintain the state's transportation system and just to operate the basics of the agency. Funding for major projects can't be used to fund maintenance and operations, and DMV is part of operations. So these tour stops by that legislative committee have allowed us to have site tours, including DMV field offices. They have roundtable discussions with local officials and other local leaders, and then public hearing to find out what transportation needs matter most to the people in each of those communities.
So with our current funding situation, what could some of the impacts be to DMV?
Well, I would say our biggest challenge is staffing, right? The people that deliver those services to Oregonians. So over the last 2+ decades, the population of Oregon has gone up by 20%, about 750,000 people. In that same time, DMV staffing has remained roughly the same. So we just simply can't keep up with that population growth. Remember, we're serving pretty much all Oregonians. But our frontline staff are always striving to provide people the highest level of customer service that they can. And again, that staffing is a daily challenge. So we have an average vacancy and absence rate of about 30% every single day. Even when all positions are filled, though, there aren't enough employees to cover what we need to be doing. And then that creates problems too, where managers are forced to work the counters instead of doing the management things that make us a better, more productive organization. So it's a problem all the way around.
I've seen sometimes where I'll get a notice that a DMV office can't open. Is that something that happens regularly?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true. And it's a relatively new development. I think, maybe 5 years ago, this really rarely happened. But take 2023. In that year, one or more DMV field offices were closed for 118 days due to staffing. The closures create really even more pronounced impacts in rural areas with fewer and fewer DMV offices, and they're spread out more. So that can leave customers without the ability to access DMV services unless they travel pretty significant distances. We're also dealing with some pretty inadequate facilities. So again, 59 field offices spread across the state. A lot of them are really too small for the communities that they serve or have other inadequacies. And so it makes it really difficult to provide the level of service that Oregonians expect and frankly deserve. So moving, though, and updating our offices can be pretty expensive. In fact, for a larger office, it can cost millions of dollars to move to a new office. So when budgets are tight, especially like they are now, work on facilities is pretty low on the priority list because we want to be prioritizing the need for staff to serve those Oregonians in the offices that we do have. So every budget funding cycle, every biennium, it becomes more and more difficult for DMV to relocate or even update and maintain the facilities that we have. But those facilities that are large or have an increased footprint offer a much better experience for our customers.
Yeah, I can kind of see the dichotomy. That's a little frustrating. I know that you have an important deadline coming up next year for Real ID. Can you tell us a little bit about what Real ID is and how the DMV staffing may impact people getting it?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So Real ID is a federal law that requires states to comply with certain standards for identification credentials, right? Your driver's license or your ID card. And for federal purposes, for most of us, what that means is air travel domestically. So starting May 7th, 2025, anyone who's 18 years of age or older has to show federally accepted identification to board a plane for U.S. flights. So one thing that works is a passport, but for most of us, right, what we use is our driver's license or ID card. So now that driver's license or ID card has to be Real ID compliant. So our field offices expect a real surge of DMV customers who want Real ID in 2025 as that enforcement deadline approaches. And they might wait till the last minute, but that's why we're encouraging Oregonians to apply for Real ID sooner rather than later, and definitely before booking a flight. If we have staffing shortages, that can cause longer than normal wait times for appointments or even when you walk in. And while DMV2U, our online presence, does offer more than 20 online services, you can't get a Real ID online. You have to come in person and present your documents.
So how does the DMV plan on managing this influx?
So we were really fortunate that in 2024 legislative session, we had made a request and the legislature approved over $4 million to prepare for this anticipated customer demand around the enforcement date. That package included some equipment, but mostly it was for staffing, 26 field office staff to work really exclusively on Real ID transactions. And then also money to run an awareness campaign so that we're sure that Oregonians know about Real ID and can make an informed choice about what they want to do. So we filled all of those positions. We've hired an ad agency to run that paid campaign. And we're just really thankful to the legislature for funding these needs to ensure that Oregonians won't be caught off guard by that deadline.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me what else has been happening at DMV lately?
Well, a lot. We've recently rolled out a new lobby queuing system. It's really helped shorten wait lines and reduce crowds in lobbies. Field offices offer check-in kiosks in multiple languages with digital displays where you can see your wait time, and you can even enter your cell phone number so that you can get a text to know when your place in line is coming up so you can leave and run some errands or get a cup of coffee. It's made for really, I'd say, a more relaxed environment in the lobby. That's a positive impact on our staff and on customers. So when that ticket is digitally announced, our staff don't lose their voice calling them out. And it's really kind of quieted the lobbies and made them a little more calm, which is wonderful. We've also added some services to the DMV2U website to make things easier for our customers. Before the pandemic, there were only 3 transactions you could do online. In 2020, when we rolled out our big new system with DMV2U, there are now 20 online transactions you can do, like renewing your vehicle registration. You can renew or replace your driver's license or your ID card, again, if you're not trying to get a Real ID. You can pay some fees, you can report an address change, and a whole lot more. You can even now take your knowledge test online, which is pretty amazing.
That is amazing. So those online services, how do they benefit DMV?
Oh, well, they benefit DMV, but mostly they benefit customers. So it's saving hundreds of thousands of customers a trip to the DMV office. But even, I always remind people, even if you don't go online and you come into the DMV field office, you're still being helped by that online service because somebody else stayed home and took care of their transaction online. There's one less person in line in that lobby, and you're going to get served more quickly. So people are enjoying that they can schedule a DMV appointment online. There are fewer and simpler screens with new communication options, those text reminders I mentioned, and you even get a reminder about your appointment so that you don't miss it, or you can reschedule it if you need to. And then last, we're very excited about this. This fall, we're going to be piloting self-service kiosks in some grocery stores around the state. So this is going to allow us to meet our customers where they are at a time that's convenient to them. And so we're really excited about offering that option to Oregonians.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't wait to hear more about that. Is there anything else that you want to tell our listeners today?
Just that, we exist to serve Oregonians. And so go use that DMV2U or come and see us. And please be patient with us while we work through our staffing challenges. And we look forward to seeing you.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like a really exciting time at DMV. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thanks, Chris.
You have been listening to the Oregon Department of Transportation's Inside ODOT podcast. If you'd like to learn more about these topics, you can find links on our show notes page. If you have story suggestions or any feedback, hit us up at the Inside ODOT mailbox. Until then, I'm Sarah Kelber. Safe travels, everyone.